Hey, what's up, guys? We're going to be watching the new Dragon Age The Veilguard exclusive first hands-on preview. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't have a lot of high hopes for this game. It's like, from what I've seen, it looks pretty bad, but we'll see. Maybe it's not as bad as it looks. And yeah, I'm just kind of curious where it's going because I've played the original Dragon Age and or no, not the original Dragon Age Inquisition, but it was pretty fun. But this game just doesn't really look much like that one, and it seems like they went for a different direction. I've heard like a lot of different things, like they went for more of a Baldur's Gate 3 vibe, except it's like done poorly. So we'll see how it goes.
Long years since Dragon Age Inquisition, and the expectations for the next game
It just looks so cheap and bad. I'm sorry. Okay.
in the series, Dragon Age The Veilguard, seem impossible. A full decade, a bevy of behind-the-scenes changes, and an interesting start to its marketing campaign made me a little worried for my most highly anticipated game of the
Ugh. Why? Why? Ugh.
year.
I admire you. What you've been through would break most people.
But one of my biggest concerns, based
Why did the graphics look so like cheap and bad? Like they're not even like stylized. They just look like ugh. The enemies though look pretty cool, like that Death Knight and then this like demon with an axe is kind of cool.
on early previews, was
His axe looks stupid as hell though.
that it could be headed in the direction of being a linear action game rather than its more open-world predecessor.
Okay, this right here doesn't look terrible, but then it's just like certain things like this looks terrible right here. This is meh.
While Dragon Age is known for changing its style with each installment, I hoped dearly that it wouldn't lose too much of the DA DNA I fell in love with. After hours of hands-on time spread across 2 days, I'm pleased to say that I walked away with excitement and curiosity, but mostly relief to wave many of those concerns goodbye.
Can I be honest? It looks like a cheap knockoff version of New World with like better telegraphed? Is it telegraphed? Like combat. Oh. That looks kind of sick.
My time with the Veilguard covered a wide smattering of things, including the incredibly expansive character creator, the introductory quest,
Dude,
a faction
they made
mission, and a companion quest.
Why did they make this race look so dumb? Like, why'd they make like their forehead look so goofy?
A faction mission,
Like
and a
this.
companion quest a little deeper into the game. But I was mostly pleased with my ability to just explore Northern Thedas in all its gorgeously designed glory, experiencing a setting in Dragon Age lore that we've really only heard about. To be
I like how she says explores the glorious looking game, but it's just like this looks good, kind of. But like this right here looks like shit. Like this looks like some like Bethesda engine crap.
Age lore that we've really only heard about. To be clear, the Veilguard isn't the open-world playground that Inquisition was. As game director Corinne Bush has previously stated, it's more mission-based. But what impressed me after the first few hours was how much exploration can still be done in the various regions, as well as the impact the player character, Rook, can have on those regions.
And there we go. Easy.
Wow,
That's kind of a little cool bridge thing.
isn't that something?
Consider it something of a mix of Dragon Age 2 and Inquisition. The more streamlined approach of the former with the
Just why does it look so bad? Like it doesn't look as goofy as the first one, but still. Like why have all this extra flesh right here?
approach of the former with the geographically and sociopolitically diverse world of the latter.
Okay, that looks cool. Like that's a vibe.
Of course, some of the bigger art style, combat, and game
Why does this guy look like dog crap? Like the design's cool, but like his he just looks rendered horribly.
gameplay changes will be subject to personal taste. But after my time with the Veilguard, I left feeling like these 10 long years just might have been worth the wait.
Don't tell me that's the enemy,
As
bro.
fans have already seen from the first gameplay trailer, players are dropped right into the city of Minrathous in the middle of the action as Solus prepares
Oh my god, they made the bald guy evil. And they made his character model look like booty too.
a ritual that will devastate Thedas. Luckily, our old friend Varric has recruited you to help, and
Wow, these are good looking character models. Is that like, are these the only
It
ones?
barely takes a couple of minutes for the game to put the focus on Rook.
Okay, but this is like rendered.
After a surprisingly
Pre-rendered
concise
cinematic.
story recap from Varric, there are a number of aspects the Veilguard starts easing you into. For one, the combat. Gone are the days of Dragon Age Origins'
Like,
more
this place looks good.
CRPG-inspired tactical system, offering a style that's a mix of quick action and a mechanic where you can pause and pull up your radial menu. While this absolutely does take some getting used to, and it'll be a gradual process to create what could be a highly customized build while learning all your companions' different abilities, it didn't take me long to actually start having fun with it. I largely played mage and rogue builds during my hands-on time, and also quickly started to lean on certain companions' abilities. For one, the mage healing ability was essential. For one particularly difficult remnant, I basically established a pattern where I was only using Balara's mana to heal me, dodging and playing it safe when it got too risky. Nev's ability to slow time was also one I kept returning to, offering a bit more control on the battlefield when the situation got a little too fast-paced.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
And for you glass cannon builds out there, you'll want to have a warrior around to taunt your enemies out of your way.
I did it, Devrin.
No problem.
Like a whole lot in the Veilguard, combat revolves around your companions, even though you can't fully take control of them like in previous Dragon Age games.
Is this a weird opinion, but like, I feel like this would actually be a decent MMO. Like, with the way the game looks and the way the game like plays, like combat wise, this would be a decent MMO, because like the lower quality would be more understandable. Like, the quality isn't terrible, it's just terrible for a single player game, because like in a single player game, like, you're not, you know, it's not a server. Like, this is a game save file. It's way easier to have like this all pre-rendered and rendered at better quality, and to like focus more on the stylized graphics. And it's just weird because they've been working on this for so long. Like, don't get me wrong, MMOs shouldn't have bad looking graphics either, but like, at least I would understand why some of the models look goofy in certain like times and stuff, because that's not really why you're playing the game. You're playing the game for like the combat and stuff. The combat's so far from what I've seen, like, it's nothing crazy, and it's, in my opinion, kind of worse than what it was in Dragon Inquisition. Jeez. But like, it looks decent. Like, it looks like it might be a little bit fun, like depending on the combinations.
Different companions have different combo options together, and there are certainly opportunities to build team synergy.
Oh, dude,
and
it's
you'll want to
like
listen to your
gotcha, bro.
companions in combat too, as they'll occasionally drop some useful hints.
Hitting us from range.
Like
But
every
combat
other
aside,
game.
your dialogue choices, your Rook's background, and the frequent decisions you make are immediately important, which shouldn't be too surprising for fans of BioWare games. The dialogue wheel is back, of course.
These just all seem like the same thing.
As is the approval-disapproval system.
We haven't got a lot of time. Varric said you had a lead on Solus?
You get right to the point.
But I was surprised to see that the Veilguard actually explains the consequences of some of your dialogue choices in very clear terms.
See, you say that.
It's a variation of the so-and-so will remember that system, but more specific.
But we do have Nev's location now, so...
Take, for example, my first confrontation with Solus, aka Fen'Harel, aka the Dreadwolf. I chose a more sarcastic, humorous approach with him, and at the end of our confrontation, text on the side of the screen informed me that I have traded verbal jabs with Solus.
This is your responsibility now.
See, like, how in a single player game can you make, like, in 2024, how can you make like the cinematics, they're normal, they're fine, the characters look fine, but then in game they look so goofy and they look like they're from 2018.
It was far from the only occurrence of this sort of text, and it leaves me curious as to how your relationships with various characters will build and branch out over time based on your attitude. Speaking of consequences, it quickly
Ooh,
became
cute
clear
little
to me that there
owl
would
bird thing.
consistently be tons of choices in the Veilguard that'll have lasting results. It Probably sounds like I'm stating the obvious here, but I got
That's
the
like a
sense that
baby
even
griffin.
more of these kinds of choices might be peppered throughout than the usual BioWare game. Right at the beginning, for instance, I made a choice that led to Harding getting injured, and she was still bruised up for the remainder of the next couple hours. I felt like a real jerk about it, and that was probably the point. Dragon Age the Veilguard seemed to be telling me, right from the start, that I'm going to feel like a jerk a lot.
You don't slow down for much, do you?
Without spoiling too much, you'll also be able to see some of your progression and choices in the environment around you as well. But once in
Bro, I wish, like, I hate games where, like, when you use magic, you have to use, like, a wand or, like, a staff. Like, bro, just let me shoot magic out of my hands. Like, what's the point? Like, why do I have to channel? Why do I have to hold a stupid stick?
introductions were out of the way, it was time to explore the wide world of Thetis and see its
Like,
past
it's
and
so
present
lame.
collide.
Shall we?
Like, look, this is lame.
Let's do this.
Like, if you want to have
As mentioned
it,
earlier,
that's
one of
fine,
my
but
biggest worries
I
was
don't-
that the Veilguard could end up being more linear in its approach, trading branching gameplay for a
I just hate the, like, this looks so cheap. Like, this is giving me, like, Suicide Squad vibes, like, the game.
straight line. And sure, the opening hours, essentially the tutorial zone, are a little railroady, save for a couple key decisions you have to make. But
The
once you're
effects
past
are
that
so
and more
cheap,
established
too.
within Act 1, you're much more free to tackle quests as you please, as you unlock
Like, don't, like, I'm sure this guy is just pressing one button, like, but, like, the category, I can't think of the words, choreography, whatever, like, the way they like, you know, have the moves going, like, the way they're using them and the way they're, like, you know, like, you, like, oh my god, the attack animations, basically, like, the attack animation is, like, really cool. Like, this whole sequence right here, this is
within
cool.
Act 1, you're much more free to tackle quests as you
But, like, I think he's literally pressing one or two buttons that whole time.
please, as you unlock more and more regions.
So I just feel like the combat's going to be very plain and boring.
You do this via the crossroads. For those of you who aren't brushed up on your Dragon Age lore, that's a nexus between the waking world of Thetis and the metaphysical realm of the Fade, through which the ancient elves would travel through magical mirrors called alluvians. You now use the alluvians for that same purpose, and to unlock new regions, you have to fight through certain areas of the crossroads before you can start fast traveling to them.
Like, dude is literally not using his abilities, and they're all grayed out for some reason.
Unlocking said regions opens up a vast network of areas, and not unlike past Dragon Age games, they're dramatically different from one another.
As the gods' champion passed freely, so will you.
Take, for example, the Arlethan Forest.
That's
A
cool.
gorgeous, colorful region that mixes greenery with elven magic. You can see nugs burrow into the grass, magical artifacts abound.
Like, don't get me wrong, these are really nicely detailed and stuff. It's just they kind of, like, this looks good here. It's just some of them look bad.
And there's a vast array of nature to
But that
simply
just might be
admire.
the
You're hit with
IGN
a
guy's
massive tone
computer,
shift, however,
or
when you head to
whoever
Hosberg.
gameplay this is.
Lavendel Village. Whatever happened here looks like Demeter's Crossing.
Like, this doesn't
Currently
look that
under
bad
siege
either.
by the Blight, here is where you'll see some of the more horror-inspired aesthetics, and frankly, just some of the grosser aspects of the Blight. While the Veilguard's tone certainly leans more high fantasy in places like the Crossroads, don't worry. Those who miss the gore and dark fantasy of Origins will find that too in places where the Blight has spread.
Oh,
But I couldn't help but spend a lot of my time just running around in Treviso, the bustling city that's home to the Antivan Crows faction. For one thing, a lively city feels like a novelty in Dragon Age, but there was simply
This
so
just
much to
reminds me of
explore that I
Anthem,
kept getting sidetracked.
this
A merchant
area.
with unique items here, a new quest to pick up over there, and a random combat encounter over there.
which honestly actually makes sense because it's made by the same people. BioWare or whatever.
And that's just when I wasn't looking around for a cat or dog to pet. Because yes, you can pet the cats and dogs. Outside of the cats and dogs, there are some unique ways to interact with the environment as well. Each companion has an environmental ability, some of which came in quite handy for me. In my time in the Arlethan Forest, I frequently called upon Balara, whose environmental ability allows her to tinker with magical artifacts. In a nice
Yeah, like, why do the character models look so bad? Like, the enemies don't look that bad. Like, they look okay, like, decent, and some of them look really good, but it's like, all your allies and like NPCs look like doo-doo.
Quality of life
Including
feature,
yourself.
your companions don't even need to be in your party in order for you
Unless
to
you're
use
like
these
the
abilities.
human build, then
As an
you look
aside,
okay.
another one of my favorite quality of life additions is the fact that party banter pauses and picks up again later if you trigger combat, a cutscene, or anything else that would interrupt their dialogue. That's right, no more awkward standing around in order to hear the complete conversation.
Oh, yes.
If you're feeling overwhelmed, the difficulty and accessibility options do allow for about just as much or as little hand-holding as you need. For example, with one Antivan Crow's quest I was doing, I could turn the navigation on and simply follow the game's guidance, or turn it off and look for clues in the environment to follow. In this case, the crow's purple symbol painted on certain walls.
Another mark this way.
I also just happened to be playing an Antivan Crow
Like, this looks decent.
Rook while completing this quest, which led to some fun dialogue options.
We crows are all the army Antiva has, but it's not like we can field a garrison.
Once I was in the thick of things, I could clearly see the features in the Veilguard that boiled down to, okay, we heard the complaints about Inquisition, specifically addressing the infamous hinterlands problem, which is a reference to the first open world area players visit in Inquisition. The zone was packed with more than 50 side quests, many of which boiled down to mere fetch quests, and it left many players drowning in a bevy of checklists that felt inconsequential to the story. The Veilguard has boiled this down quite a lot. You're still free to explore, but the scope isn't nearly as dizzying, and the quests point back to the main story, a region or faction, or a companion. Another clear reaction to criticisms of Inquisition are our villains in the Veilguard, Algernon and Gillenane. The two elven gods feel much more present throughout the events of the early game than Corypheus, the frankly lackluster baddie of Inquisition.
Whatever comes, we're ready for a fight.
Words easily said, but rarely proven.
While there's a whole lot more Thedas to see and talk about, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring it back home to the
That's
lighthouse.
Oh.
The lighthouse will likely be the most important location of the Veilguard, serving as the hub for you and your companions. Each one of your companions has their own room, and conveniently, a light shines outside of their door when they have a cutscene available. Once you get further into Act 1, it certainly starts to feel more lived in, and you can discover some pretty charming character quirks. For example, I found that Emmerich's skeletal assistant Manfred enjoys spending time on the balcony, and we even got a few games of rock, paper, scissors in.
That's cool. Cool little interactable.
The lighthouse is also, obviously, where you're able to
Like, that looks so goofy. Like, who thought that was a good idea right there? Like, the way
The
they
lighthouse is
walk.
also
Like, look at
obviously
that.
where you're able to do some housekeeping, especially when it comes to the caretaker.
Offer, dweller.
That's
I
cool.
will
That is a
answer.
cool NPC.
This wildly helpful spirit is always standing by to help you enchant and upgrade armor for you and your companions. But I found the lighthouse somewhat symbolic of one of the biggest challenges this game is facing, bringing in new players while honoring the now incredibly vast lore that Dragon Age has built across the games, comic books, short stories, and more. Basically, if you were worried that the name change from Dragon Age Dreadwolf would mean less Solus, think again. His history, along with the history of the other elven gods, is baked into the lighthouse, and you learn more and more about the threat you face as you unlock Solus's murals with various wolf statues. You even get to see some of his memories firsthand.
They need gods who can protect them. We are not gods. You will learn that.
As a lore nerd, I very much appreciated this, as well as the various other callbacks to series history. The Origins fans will likely love the Grey Warden heavy quests, and we already know the Inquisitor will be involved in some way, as you can recreate them and select your world states in the character creator. But I do wonder if it'll overwhelm new players, which BioWare certainly seems to be courting with its action-heavy combat system. That's
So
why
you
it
say
helps at least-
action-heavy combat system, but this seems so simple. Like, is that just me? Like, this seems so simple, and it doesn't seem like they give you so much room with like the slowing down with like, you know, between abilities, kind of like you can in Spider-Man. But in Spider-Man, it feels more like in tune with the game because you're Spider-Man. Like, you should be like faster, you know, reacting, and like there's so many combos. In this game, it just seems like for example, if you're using a controller, you just press square or X depending on Xbox or PlayStation, and then you press a few abilities once in a while, and who knows how long these cooldowns
combat
are.
system.
Seem pretty long.
That's why it helps,
For a
at
lot
least,
of
to have
these
something of an
abilities.
outsider like Rook to take the helm of the Veilguard. Plus, the scrappiness of Rook reminded me a bit of playing as Hawk in Dragon Age 2, rather than the more Chosen One-esque protagonists of the Warden in Origins and the Inquisitor in Inquisition. In short, a lot changed in Dragon Age the Veilguard, but there was so much I was relieved to see stay. The focus on companions and romance, the rich lore, and a gorgeous world to explore. It goes without saying that there's still a ton of the Veilguard that I haven't seen, especially if it's as big as Origins and Inquisition, and it certainly seems like it. But after finishing my preview, I found myself even more eager to dive into it, and much more hopeful that this could be the hit BioWare needs.
Okay, so I'm gonna give my opinion. So I actually don't think this game is as bad as I thought it was, but I still don't think it's gonna be good. Like, this is probably like a 6 out of 10. And not by like IGN standards. I know IGN would be like, this is a, to them, this is probably like a 8 out of 10 or some crap. Did they even give a rating? Yeah, because this is not a review. But it's just like, I know like people are going to be like, why are you shitting on the graphics? It's not just the graphics. It's like a lot of it is the fact that what do you call it? Just the combat and like the way the game like plays. Like a lot of the animations are a little dorky. The combat looks like it's going to be really simple. This looks stupid. The story might be interesting, but like BioWare usually doesn't do very like I'm not talking about before, I'm talking about recently. Like they haven't put out a good story in like 6-10 years. Like it's been bad. Like look at Anthem for example. Look at the last was it Mass Effect? Yeah, Mass Effect Andromeda or whatever. Yeah, like that one was like you know what I mean? I don't know, like, and their combat hasn't been good in the last 6-10 years either, so I don't know. But I don't have a lot of hopes for this game. I probably won't play it unless I see something crazy, but you know, maybe you guys like this kind of game. I really don't. Like, I think there's things they could change and it would be a lot better. Like slight things like the combat and the way it works, and like maybe adding some combos like you can in like Spider-Man, or like, you know, like I'm trying to think of like other single player games that have like really good combat, like God of War and stuff. Like this one, it kind of just seems like spam basic attack, usability every, you know, 5 seconds, or if it has a long cooldown, like 20-30 seconds. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that was Dragon Age the Veilguard. That's a 6 out of 10 to me. Don't know about you guys. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Peace.